I can see you. I don't know if you can see me. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. All
right.
right. Welcome to paraglidingtalk.com. I'm your host, Robert Michaels. You're here. We're joined with speed flyer, David Hebert. He has been skydiving, speed flying, speed riding for some years now. I met him through some mutual pilots, and just a great guy. He's standing in the landing zone at Soboba Flight Park here in Southern California as we speak. We sent out a few other invites. We're going to have some questions from the chat as you guys are all logging in. So glad that you're here. Really appreciate everybody participating in what we've been doing. If you want to know details about the shows in the past, you can go to paraglidingtalk.com. You can find out what's happening, what's coming up next. And so with that said, I really appreciate everybody who's been a part of the show this far, and we're going to have a good show tonight. I also invited Rich Kennedy, who is also a teacher there, instructor at Soboba Flight Park, teaching speed flying. He sent me an email. Also, Jessica Frump, she's already been on the show. As a matter of fact, she's probably one of those people that's up in the air behind David there. And she texted me just before. Yeah, that's her. So, hey, this is a great show live. We got people in the air already. So I want to start off by asking you, David, we talked just before the show started, and you had mentioned that you used to fly with the Red Bull athlete. So you got one landing right behind you.
That's correct. We used to have a lot of Red Bull swoop competitions. They used to sponsor us, and 5 times a year or 6 times a year, they would put on a big competition at different spots around the country, on beaches, at amusement parks, and in public venues, where we would put on shows for the public, have competitions. There'd be a little bit of prize money put out by Red Bull. It was actually quite a good, fun thing to do back in the day.
That is excellent. There's actually a swoop competition coming to San Diego. Did you hear about that?
I do know about that. I'm going to be involved with it. I was actually involved with the first ever competition those people did in Copenhagen in 2014. It's a freestyle event, and they started in Copenhagen doing it in front of big crowds in the middle of the city, and it's been catching on. They've been doing it every year since, and now this is the first year where it's coming to the United States as well.
This is the first year?
First year, correct.
Oh, wow.
So now it's only been in Copenhagen one time a year. So freestyle swooping is coming back to the scene through this competition series.
That is excellent. Okay, so how can people be involved in? I think it's what, September 14th and 15th. Is that right?
I believe it's that weekend. Yeah.
Let me, while we're talking, my next question is, how did you get into speed flying? And I'm going to pull up that that little advertisement for the swooping competition while you're talking.
Yeah, no worries. So speed flying for me began through the pro swooping. In 2003, we had just finished the World Cup in Paris Valley, California, just down the road here. And my friend who was putting on that competition, who also ran the pro swoop tour at the time, Jim Slayton, he was beginning the ground launch center, they called it at the time. And we were ground launching parachutes, taking our high performance parachutes, running them off the mountain like a paraglider, and then flying high speed down the mountain. At the time, we didn't know what we were doing really, so we were figuring it out as we went. And we quickly came to the realization we needed better wings. Our skydive wings weren't that good. They were built more for a deployment rather than for flight characteristics. So that's when speed wings started to get developed around 2006. The first speed wings came onto the market.
So they started literally designing speed wings for the mountains compared to what you were flying when you're jumping out of airplanes.
Yeah, the first initial speed wings were built by the skydiving manufacturers, NZ Aerosports, Icarus Canopies. They made a GLX. It was called the Ground Launch Extreme. And that was literally one of the first speed wings that was specific made for the sport. That came out in about 2003. and it was a skydiving wing that we converted over, and we opened the nose up so that it would inflate faster, but it was essentially still a swoop wing. It was really steep, really fast, a lot of fun to fly, but you had to run really fast to get it off the ground at the same time. So after
So,
flying that for a few years, the paragliders saw us struggling, and I think the paragliding companies started to make better wings.
okay,
You are,
so
are you live right now?
We are live.
is
This
that
is
Alan?
so.
Alan, though, what are you doing over there?
Dude, try not to die. Same as everyone else. Dude, it's
Are you going to
perfect.
come on the show? What's up? I'll send you an invite.
No, I'm just here, just landed.
Doing some acro for us, putting on a show.
Yeah.
When
Did you
Alex
have a hard landing?
No, I got twisted up on a heli really bad, but I got out of it without throwing. Look at that island.
Wow. Good draw.
This is from Rhythmic, though.
It's all going on
Nice.
here.
Are you going back up?
No, it just shut. I mean, it did shut up, but we're on little wings, so yeah. Paraglider
Okay.
time now.
Nice.
Up, though.
Thanks for joining us, bro.
Yeah. Alan is a regular on the show. He's
He's also here at Soboba.
yeah, I
Getting his
bet.
active session in.
Yep. He's been working on that heli.
Yeah, he was doing pretty good today. I got some video of it.
I found the details of the swoop competition. I'm just going to quickly show this so for when we go back to watch this
Awesome.
later. So the event is going to be, it looks like it's going to be in the Bay.
Yep.
So that is
Those
September
guys on the front
14th.
are Nick Batch, good friend of mine. I've been swooping with those guys for 15 plus years now. It's going to be a good show. People are not going to want to miss it. I definitely recommend showing up in person to watch too, because it's much more impressive than watching it on TV. When you see live the students involved in what we do, it puts a whole new dimension on things.
Okay, so check this out. And I don't even know if I should be saying this, but if you can see my mouse, see that building right next to his head? That's my building. So I'll have access to that. Don't tell everybody, but I'll have access to that if we want to go up there and watch from there. And that'll be a pretty cool viewpoint. But anyways,
that sounds good.
Yeah. Are you going to be jumping in that?
I'm not going to be jumping. I'm going to be working with the crew on the ground.
Okay. And what are you going to be in a boat or something?
What's that?
You going to be in a boat?
I'll probably be more on the shore, handling logistics.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am
There's
stoked.
only 16 athletes in this one, and they pick from the top competitors in the world today, and I haven't been competing for about a year and a half, 2 years. I've taken a break.
What's your
So I'm no longer on the scene.
taking a break?
Speed flying school.
Yeah, I was going to say taking a break means that you're only flying once a day or twice a day.
Yeah.
After all your students are done.
Yeah. A couple skydives, a couple speed flights, maybe a paraglider flight.
I'm putting it in my calendar as we speak. So that's a Friday and a Saturday. I imagine it's going to be in the evening. I couldn't see the details on that, but
yeah, they'll probably release more details as it gets closer.
Pretty awesome. Okay, so I've got a couple questions for you. Let's talk about the transition from skydiving into speed flying, and you kind of already did. Was there a learning curve there?
Oh, definitely. When you come from skydiving and in that kind of background, a lot of times people will assume that they understand a lot about wings and how to fly. And the issue with skydiving is we never really fly in proximity to anything except right at landing time. Whereas in speed flying, you're in proximity to the mountain the whole time. So I equate it to hopping in a wind tunnel where you have the walls around you telling you what's going on versus being in free fall and not having anything but big blue open sky. Right? When you're skydiving and on a parachute, you're in big blue open sky and there's no reference points. When you're speed flying, you're close to the ground, you're getting visual feedback for every input that you put into the wing. So it's this learning curve goes up, but at the same time, the danger is also much higher because you are close to the ground. And you don't have a reserve system typically because you're not high enough to use one.
Okay, you just scratched off one of my questions. Do you fly with the reserve?
Well, not usually, but there are times when I do take a reserve. If I'm in Europe and I'm flying off a big mountain, and at one point on the flight I might be 1,000 or 2,000 feet above a valley, at that point I consider taking a reserve, because if I did have a malfunction or have the wing spin up at that stage, I could deploy the reserve and use that.
Very good.
But typically I'm only 20 or 30 feet off the train at any given point.
Uh, let's talk about the dangers of the sport. You're sometimes just a couple feet, maybe sometimes even inches off the ground.
Correct. Literally kicking bushes and dragging our toes across the launch as we fly by.
I've got a video of you actually on a small wing. I think it's your regular wing, and you did the longest foot drag I've seen without a motor. I've got it on video actually right here. I'll have to pull that up.
Nice.
What does your wing is flying at a ridiculous speed? So let's talk about the dangers of the sport. What are you seeing happening out there, and how can we avoid some of the accidents?
Well, a lot of the accidents are quite avoidable, and I started off with the premise that I teach everyone to fly, telling them you have the rest of your life to fly, so there's no rush. The number one reason for accidents are people are trying to get into something too fast, too soon, do too much before they're ready for it. So they see something really cool looking and they say, oh, I want to do that. That looks awesome. I want to do a barrel on landing, or I want to do a foot drag for 100 meters across the ground. Well, what they don't realize is that it's 20 years of experience and learning and flying almost every day to get to that point, and they're expecting to get there in 3 weeks. So that's, if I had the one piece of advice for any pilot learning speed flying, is take your time. There's no rush. The longer you take to learn, the better you're going to learn, the less you're going to forget, the safer pilot you become, because you don't get into a situation too soon that you're not ready for.
Maybe talk about that. What's a common mistake that you're seeing with speed pilots?
They're heading up often in conditions that aren't conducive to fly, because they've come to the site, they've taken the time off work, it's the weekend, they only have 2 days to fly, and well, I'm going to fly because I have the time now. But if the weather's not saying it's time to fly, you have to first listen to the weather, just like in paragliding. You can't change the weather. You have to observe the weather and make changes accordingly. If the weather's not good for flying, get your climbing harness out and go climbing somewhere, or go to the drop zone and skydive. Find something else to do that's not as dangerous as speed flying down the mountain. So typically we're going to fly early morning as soon as katabatic flow stops, and then we stop when we start to feel thermals. That's the speed flying window, ideally. And then late evening, as glass off is finishing off and the air is getting really smooth and not so lifty anymore, that also is ideal for us. Because if we're going to fly close to the train, we don't want lifting air and sinking air, because if we're only 2 inches away and we sink, well, now we're eating dirt, right? So if we want to fly close and fast, we have to have that smooth air so that the wing flies predictably. If our wing is bouncing around, hitting speed bumps every 5 seconds, I'm going to keep a safety distance between myself and the train, so that if I do drop 20 feet, I'm not eating dirt. And in fact, if it's like that, I'm probably going to choose not to fly in the first place, because it's not as much fun. So it's being very picky about when you fly, and not being in a rush to get all the flights and all the sites done and all this stuff too soon, too fast.
So a guy wants to get up in the air. He's obviously going to come check in with you guys, and you're going to say, and I've flown at Soboba several times, and you guys are very safety conscious. From my perspective, you guys have been very adamant about, hey, don't launch too early, or don't launch too late in some cases where guys are coming in the morning. What's the window like to fly in the morning, and what's the window like in flying in the afternoon, or the late afternoon, I should say?
So on the two extremes, you have winter and summer conditions, right? In the midsummer, our morning window goes from about 8 a.m. till 10:30 or 11 a.m. at the latest. Anything after 11 a.m. is going to be too rough, too bumpy, too thermic, dust devils, etc. Evening window starts about 6 p.m. and goes till sunset for speed flying. The PG window in the evening goes from about 4 till sunset, depending on, the pilots usually head up at 4, and the bolder ones launch earlier, and the less bold ones take their time and launch later. Speed flying, though, typically I wait till the lift is starting to shut off, and you just have a little bit of upslope flow, so you get a nice easy launch, but then a nice smooth flight down as well.
It's a really cool site, by the way. If you get a chance, go check out the link in the description to Soboba Flight Park. I put they have a link on their Facebook, and then there's also a way that you can get in contact with David and the team down there at Soboba if you wanted to get some lessons on speed flying or speed riding. And so maybe we'll talk a little bit about speed riding. This is where you put some shorter skis, I imagine, or maybe I don't know very much about it. Talk about that and how do you train for that, and how does that work?
Sure. Speed riding is becoming very popular in Europe in the wintertime when they put the paragliders away. A lot of the paragliding pilots are now strapping on small wings with skis and skiing down the mountain for the most part while kiting. Then when you come up to a cliff that normally you want to be able to ski off of.
David,
yeah, go ahead.
Can you turn sideways with your phone or cup the mic? The wind just took over the audio.
Is that better?
I think so. Yeah, there you go.
All right, cool.
Perfect.
So with speed riding, we're trying to take off with the wing on skis, but then try to stay on the train while skiing with the wing. When we come up to a cliff, we can take off, do a spiral turn or a barrel roll, get back down on the train, and we use the wing as a tool to access maybe terrain that we wouldn't be able to access normally skiing because of cliff outs and what have you. So it opens up the world of skiing, and it opens up the world of flying at the same time. So you learn to ski with your wing, you get better at kiting, and there's all sorts of tricks you can learn to do. And it's really the next evolution in connecting the ground and the air together.
It looks,
and when we do it on
rad.
powder, on powder, it even adds an element of safety to a certain degree, because if you do wipe out, you have 3 feet of powder typically that you're wiping out into. So it's different than if you go down on the train here and you have dirt and desert cacti that you're wiping out into versus 3 feet of soft powder.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think, well, I'm not an expert speed flyer, but I can ski pretty good. Can I do this? And the answer is absolutely. We do speed riding camps in France in the winter, and we teach people how to ski with the wing. And we start off on a really flat slope where they can't even possibly take off on, but they can ski with the wing. They learn how to ski with the wing first, and as they become more and more proficient, we increase the angle of the slope so that eventually they can learn to take off and then match the slope. Because the hard part is actually staying down and keeping your skis in contact with the ground while you have the wing up, because the tendency is for it to want to take off as soon as you have some speed. So we learn to slow the wing down, get close to the stall point, and then turn the wing at that slow speed with us while we ski, and we turn powder turns, and whenever we want, we can let up, take off, do some barrel rolls, come back down, touch down on the train, and just have this continuous flow of flying / skiing at will.
Woo.
It's a lot of fun.
It looks intense. I've watched a few videos. I saw a really cool one where the guy had like some kind of a light up in his wing, and he was flying when it was pretty dark out.
Yeah, that was Valentin Duluc. He's one of the Red Bull athletes.
Okay.
He lit his wing up some LEDs, and they flew down a line that they flew a lot during the day, so he knows the line well. It wasn't his first time flying that mountain, right? So he knows the line. They put the lights in. He has a good cameraman that follows him, and they go down and get epic footage.
And that was epic. That was that was one of the first times I saw speed riding. So
him and the same guy did another video where they speed fly / ride through a mountain town in France. They fly past a coffee shop where people are hanging out having their coffee, and they come to a stop in the town square, and then they take their wings off and sit down and have a coffee as well.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That has always inspired me. Even in the paragliding realm, my background is just free flight paragliding, and I'll see them through the Alps come in, land somewhere, have some dinner, spend the night, wake up in the morning, launch right from outside the house, or sometimes
Yeah.
it's just to stop and get something to eat, and that's inspiring to me.
Yeah.
One of the questions in the chat came up, and Carl, he had asked, "What's it like to work with Red Bull?"
They're a company that's really into extreme sports, and it was a lot of fun because they put on a good show, and they specialize in putting on a good show. So anytime you went to a Red Bull event, you just expected that it was going to be organized well. There was going to be cold water, cold Red Bull, things happening when we're not jumping, announcers. They just knew how to put on so the public would be in. Because a lot of the difficult thing with skydiving, it's so intermittent. There's only a person landing every few minutes, and it only lasts for a few seconds. So you have to keep the crowd's interest in between, and that's where the Red Bull came in. They would be really good at putting intermission shows, having an announcer that kept everyone interested, and keeping the show alive, making it fun and interesting for everybody. So it's a really difficult task to do that and put together something that's so dependent on weather, right? Because you can get to your show venue and have everyone lined up, and then the rain cloud comes in and you put everyone on hold for 2.5 hours,
Right.
right? It's a tricky type of event to do, but they really did a good job for about 3 or 4 years. They had, like I said, I think it was 5 events a year that we did with them. And there's usually $5,000 prize money. So if you won, you could take home a little bit of money, pay for your trip. But like most things in flying related, we don't get rich off of it.
Yeah.
If we're lucky, we can get a little here and there to help pay for our addictions. But maybe buy some new nylon.
Yeah. So another question came up. Anthony asked, "Is there anywhere locally in SoCal?" And he referenced Big Bear to speed ski fly or to speed ride.
So in SoCal, particularly, well, we don't have much snow. So the answer to that is usually no. The resorts that are in America do not tend to allow speed riding for liability reasons because of the waiver and the law involved. Whereas in Europe, they have this thing called personal responsibility, where people take responsibility for their own actions and don't try and sue somebody if they crash into a tree on someone's property, right? So in France and Switzerland, they allow it on the ski property because they know if you mess up, it's on you and you have to have insurance to cover you. Whereas here, the ski resorts aren't willing to take the risk. They see it as too small of a market to make it worth their while to allow it. So there's only one ski resort in the whole country, or maybe two, that allow us to speed ride. And at that, I wouldn't even call it speed riding because they allow you to launch on skis and land on skis, but you're not allowed to touch down anywhere in between. So it's not really speed riding. So unfortunately, the answer to that is no. And nowhere in North America is there really good places to speed ride unless you go into backcountry with your own snowmobiles and you're accessing terrain that's, either
Remote.
national forest or and that type of thing.
So my next question is, have you ever decided to speed ride anyways here in the States?
Even though it wasn't
Yeah.
in the States? Oh yeah, a lot of speed riding in the States for sure.
Yeah, nice.
Backcountry, to be honest. I
Okay.
have launched at Aspen. There's some back bowls called the Maroon Bowls that they allow to use their lifts to access it. Once you take off, you have a 4,000-foot flight, but it's mostly flying again because that one is very steep and it's an avalanche chute. So you have a 60-degree avalanche chute that you're going down. You're not really going to speed ride and try and cause an avalanche. So the Maroon Bowls, you can speed fly, launch on skis, land on skis. Then you have about a 45-minute trek out to get back to the lift. That's one of the flights in Colorado. Then you have Vail Resorts also has a launch that is off their property. They allow you to use their lifts to access it, but you can't land on their property. So you launch off-piste and you land off-piste, and that one also is about a 30-minute trek back to the lift. So the speed riding in America is tricky. There is another mountain in Washington called Crystal Mountain, who's been allowing it the longest amount of time. Red Bull actually used to do events called the Blade Raid, and I was involved with one of those back in the day as well, where we got dropped out of helicopters on our swooping wings, and then we speed flew down the mountain through a course on the ski hill. So I believe the first one of those was maybe 2003, 2004. And then did a couple of those through those years into 2006. And then they stopped doing the blade raids. So that was another boat we used to put on. Yeah, it was super fun.
I remember seeing that when it came out. That was intense.
Yeah.
And that was all.
We also didn't know what we were doing. We were figuring it out at the time. And then the second year we did it, we tried launching our parachutes on skis because we were like, oh, well, we saw these other guys launching on skis. We don't need the helicopter. Let's just pull the skis out. And so we started to figure out that it's better to just launch off the mountain than to have to hire a helicopter because that costs a lot of money.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of guys that watch the show and really appreciate everybody who's logged in right now. We've got 32 people watching live.
Awesome.
There's a lot of guys that fly paramotors. Have you ever flown a paramotor? Interested in that?
I have. I've only done a couple of days on paramotors. The first time I flew one, I took off, and my immediate instinct was to start toe dragging and doing tricks while flying it. So I immediately took off, went into the wash, started getting low on the train, flying through trees, and I quickly realized maybe I should just put this toy away for a little while before I get myself into some serious trouble. I'll end up somewhere doing some maneuver without enough altitude to find a landing area, and then the motor will cut out. So I'm going to back off the paramotoring for a little while, but I do want to get one eventually again.
Is that
I'd like to use it as a form of transport too?
What's that?
I'd like to use it as a form of transport, like our friend Tucker.
Yeah. I'm going to go to the store. I'll be right back.
I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to work because I'm going to get the drop zone that's just over the mountain. So when I go to Tandems, I could take off here, fly over the mountain. It's only 5 miles away, land at the drop zone, do my tandems, then fly back home. That's the eventual plan.
I thought it was interesting. Not too long ago, Alan Tho was involved in a rescue operation where he rescued a cutaway rig.
Yep.
And Stephen Nowak was flying around on his paramotor and being the eyes in the sky to help him to find it.
I could have used that the other day.
Oh, yeah?
What situation here? So a friend of mine, Brad Patterson, is a skydiver, base jumper, paraglider, speed flyer, stuntman, and he's always coming up with crazy ideas that he wants to try. So his idea was to take off on a paraglider off the top of the mountain with a reserve attached to a 100-foot climbing rope. The climbing rope's attached to a climbing harness that he has on underneath his base rig, and the base rig is on underneath the paragliding or the speed flying harness. Then they have a cutaway on the paraglider, a cutaway on the round, and the base rig on their back. So they take off, they get out over the LZ a couple thousand feet, 1,500 feet. They cut away from the paraglider, do a rope swing underneath the round reserve because they feed the round out first, 100 feet long of rope. So now the round's inflated, the paraglider starts to collapse. They chop the paraglider, they swing underneath the round, and when they get to the end of the swing, they cut away from the round, go into a free fall again, and then base jump off that, open their base canopy and land. So him and this guy, Kevin, did this here the other day, and the round reserves, after they cut them away, they floated up the mountain and they started thermaling. One of them got caught on this side, but the other one went all the way over the back of the mountain and was quite a ways away. So we could have used that paramotor to go up and find it. I spent about 4 hours trekking around in bushes and rocks and stuff to find it.
Did you find it?
I did find it, thankfully.
Nice.
That was $7 we saved.
Wow.
That is crazy stuff, right?
Is that on video? I want to see it.
Yeah, we have it on video. We'll be making a little short film about it and posting it soon.
Oh, I want to be the first to see it or the first to know. That is
Absolutely
awesome, man. So we're going to have to call Stephen Nowak and tell him somebody one-upped him.
Yep. I'm good friends with Stephen. I taught him how to skydive.
Really? Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, so he was learning how to skydive. I ended up being his instructor, and it worked out good because I paraglide as well, and I'm a paragliding instructor and a skydiving instructor. So it was very easy for me to transition him over. And I actually got into a little bit of trouble because I transitioned him down to a small parachute fairly quickly for skydiving standards. But because he was such a good pilot, he was doing so well. I just said, yeah, you're fine. You're doing amazing. So just jump it. So I get a call one day at home. Hey, why is this guy on the airplane with this parachute? He says you told me you could do it. I said, don't worry about it. He's a better pilot than you are, even though he only has 24 jumps. It
Oh
was pretty funny.
man.
Yeah.
Noah's a riot, man. He comes on the show every once in a while. We had him as a guest, and then he comes out and hangs out with us every once in a while. I should have sent him
He's
an
on
invite.
a skateboard tour right now.
Yep.
Did you know that?
Yeah, that's right. We promoted him with the when he was on last.
Oh, nice.
The electric skateboard shenanigans.
Yeah, he asked me if I'd go with him because I also have an electric skateboard like that.
Oh yeah, I did see it.
But I took mine for a ride to Hemet and back. It's about a 10-mile ride each way. And by the time I got back, I texted Steven back and said, "There's no way I'm going across the country on this thing." You're a braver soul than I am, man. My feet hurt so bad. I was like, no way.
You went all the way to Hemet? So you went 20 miles on that thing?
Yeah, my skateboard has a 25-mile range.
Wow.
Yeah, technology's getting amazing.
Well,
can't wait for the paramotors to start really kicking ass like that too.
You're talking about the electric ones?
They do have electric ones. When I was in France last year at the Coupé car, we looked at all the new equipment. They have like a big equipment tent with all the manufacturers. And we got to see all the new motors that are coming out. And there's a lot of electric motors on the market that are being developed and getting better. So I think within 2 or 3 years, we're going to have something electric that's better than the gas ones.
Really?
And at that stage, I might start speed flying with it. And when I come in to swoop on landing, I'll just hit the power, go back up, and I'll go do it again. That's my goal.
It's a lot of power.
That way I don't have to hike.
That way what?
That way I don't have to hike.
That's right. Speaking of not hiking, when you go to Soboba, you can catch a ride up to the launch with one of their nice off-road golf carts. And you just kick them down some tokens, and they'll take you all the way to the top. And I've personally experienced that. It's a fun little ride, and it really does beat hiking. Yeah, let me
fancy
see.
Machine that would go up and down. It's actually quite luxury compared to what we used to have. Over here, well, let me show you what we started with in our humble beginnings. This is our quad here. And we used to fit sometimes up to 6 people, believe it or not, plus a driver on this thing, and make it up the mountain.
Oh, wait a second. So did you just say that you had put 7 people on that thing?
Across the back, driver in the middle. Yeah, I've seen 7 people. It's like a clown show. You ever see those clown cars where they all pile out of their little Volkswagen? That's what it looks like when you get the line. Now, we use a slightly more luxurious vehicle that has some suspension. It's got some seats here. This is our Kubota, and we have a nice gear rack on top. You can see.
Yeah.
Up top. We don't have to tow a trailer anymore. We got nice seats in the back. Hop in, right up to launch. You don't have to hike. Especially if you're a paraglider, you get to the 650, you can take off and fly up from there. The Speed Flyers, our first Speed Fly launch is 800, and it's about a 4-minute hike from the 650 where we dropped you off. Eventually, in the next few months, we're going to extend that trail for the Kubota all the way up to the 800 so that you don't have to hike at all if you want to speed fly all day.
I saw that.
Yeah. You also have the option to hike all the way up to our current top launch is 1700 on this face. We have another one at 1800 over in that canyon. We call it the Juice Line. And we also have over, you can't see it, but over their way is where the S is, and that's 2200 feet. And that's the S line where we can also fly from. Those higher launches take about an hour and 20 minutes to get to hiking, but they are definitely worth it. The canyons that we have on this mountain right here are equivalent to Europe and the type of terrain you would experience in Europe on their trams and gondolas. The only difference is we don't have trees here because we're in Southern California. We have cacti. But the actual canyons are quite deep and steep and a lot of fun to fly. So if you're a speed flyer and you've wondered whether or not you should come check out Soboba, you should probably reconsider because there's so many lines that you don't normally see on the videos because people don't often fly them. But if you want to do a little bit of hiking, you can access some pretty amazing terrain right here in our flight park.
That's excellent. The guys want to get involved in speed flying. How much does a speed wing cost? You would think because it's less fabric that they're going to be cheaper.
They are.
Okay, good.
So it's about half the size and about half the price.
Oh, wow.
So it's actually pretty comparable to what you would think it would be. Your average paraglider ranges from 3,500 to 4,500. Your average speed wing starts at about 1,600 and goes up to 2,600.
You got one landing right behind you.
Yeah, here she comes. That's Mrs. Frump.
Oh, is that Jessica? She's flying
she's,
an acro wing?
No, she's flying a Rush, and she's trailing a 75-foot kite tail.
Oh,
You
that's
see that
cool.
tail behind. See, she's going to swoop in for us here. Maybe we can get a high five. We get a high five live on TV?
Oh man!
Oh, yeah! Nice. All right. Live action here at the flight park. It was almost a football tackle, but we got it.
Did she take you out?
No, it's all good. She got the high five. Then we got this little tail. People have been fun little neat toy. You can trail behind you, and people on the ground can kind of see when you're going up and down and doing spirals. It makes it a little more exciting for people to watch on the ground. So, we're always trying to think about how to keep things exciting here at Soboba and make things more exciting, even if you're not flying. So maybe you have a girlfriend who doesn't want to fly, but you like to hang out with her anyways. Bring her on out, get a suntan, watch the shenanigans. There's always something fun going on here. And, eventually, after everyone's done flying, we sit around the campfire or sit in the pool. Did I mention we had a pool?
Yeah, we need to go to the pool real quick. Take me
I'm
to
on
the
my way
pool.
to the pool. We have the cover on now. We're closing up shop for the night, but we've installed our Soboba swimming pool here. Let me stick my hand in. Oh, that feels good. Nice and cool in there. It's shaded. It's cool, so when it's 110 degrees out here, you can still cool off midday. Keep yourself ready to fly.
What if somebody wants to come out and camp with you guys? I know you guys have accommodations for camping. What do they need to bring, and what should they expect cost-wise?
So we have pretty much full camping facilities. We have showers, restrooms, camping sites for tents. We don't have any plugins for RVs yet. Eventually we will. So everything is off grid. We have solar system that has enough power to charge your phones, your computers, stuff like that. You just can't plug your RV in. But aside from that, nice camping. It's $8 a night. We have a kitchen, has a barbecue with propane, a fridge you can keep your stuff cold in, keep the beer cold, and a nice stove/oven for any cooking you want to do. Usually at the flight park, if there's a bunch of people hanging out, we just barbecue and make it a group thing. It's a little easier for everybody and more fun. So expect to just have a fun time camping, chilling. When the flying's not happening, we try and have a good time anyways. We got baseball, mountain bikes, electric skateboards, dirt bikes, all sorts of fun stuff you can bring out here and play with because it is a wide open space. If you're into RC airplanes, you can bring your RC airplane. I like to fly mine around at night once everyone's landed. So, having a big private space is really nice because you really can do what you want.
Yeah.
That's how we do these paraglider, cutaway, rope swing, base jump stunts because the owner says, okay, I don't care. Private property, we can do what we want. And he's okay with it as long as everyone's doing it safely and we're thinking things through and not just being willy-nilly about it. He's okay with it. So it's a nice space to come out and feel free. Like you can do things that you want. And if you're being intelligent about it, we have no problem with it.
How do you guys feel about paramotors over there?
We love them.
Nice.
Morning times are great for paramotoring. You can fly in the wash close to the mountain. There's tons of mountains all around us. I don't know if you can see, but in the background, you've been here. All around us, we have mountains everywhere. So there's amazing views to be had, and the morning conditions are usually quite nice. Very glassy, no wind.
Do you guys do paramotor training?
We do. Absolutely.
Nice. And so they can get in contact with you?
Paragliders. We get them flying on a paraglider first to make sure they can handle the wing by itself. And once they're doing safe launches with the paraglider on its own, then we transition them onto the motor. We've just found it works better with people this way.
What do you recommend as a beginner wing for speed flying?
Well, there's a few options on the market. We typically teach with either Firefly made by Ozone, 16 meter or an 18 meter, depending on your weight. Or we also have the Spitfire from Swing in a 16 meter now available, and also an 18 that we use for students. So usually the beginner wing is going to be a Spitfire 15 or a Firefly 16. Sometimes if the people have a lot of paragliding experience, they can maybe buy a mini wing as well, which would be something like a Little Cloud, easy 16 meter. It's going to get a little bit more glide, a little bit more paraglider-like, but responsive like a speed wing. So there's a whole range of wings available for a beginner depending what their background is. If they don't have any flying experience, we're going to keep them on something very docile first. They learn the paragliding first, they get a P2. Once they have a P2, then we transition them into a big, slow, like an 18-meter Firefly. Once they're showing good skills on that, then we can progress slowly into downsizing and handling more energy in the wing.
So a guy that's got, let's say he's a P4. He's been flying paragliders. He's got plenty of hours, but all of a sudden he falls in love with getting close to the ground. He wants to speed fly. What's it going to take for him to do a speed fly run with you and get that flight?
Somebody is that experienced, they're going to spend a day or two with me learning the differences between launching a speed wing and a paraglider, landing a speed wing versus a paraglider, and the in-flight characteristics. So if you have a lot of flying experience, we can pick it up fairly quickly and move quickly. But if you don't have that much flying experience, then obviously that's a slower process and would take more than just 2 days. But the typical transition course for a paraglider over to speed wings for me is 2 days. And then I like to apprentice people as well, in that I tell them, keep coming back here and flying. You don't have to pay for lessons, but as long as instructors are around, we can see what you're doing and help to continue to guide you and keep you on the right track.
Yeah.
Because another mistake people make is they do a couple of days of instruction and then they think, well, I'm going to go start opening lines now in the Sierras, which we all know that's not smart. Sierras is big air, big mountains, big consequences. Before you do anything like that, you need years and years of experience, both in the paragliding and speed flying world, so you can understand mountain weather, you can understand what your glide ratios are going to be, what dangers might be involved on certain runs, and what areas you might need to avoid, other areas you might need to have as markers. If you don't make it there by a certain point, you have alternate landing areas. There's a lot of factors to consider when flying a big 6,000 foot mountain, right? So as a beginner, we recommend people start somewhere, but then continue to fly that site until they've gotten very comfortable. Because you're always more comfortable somewhere you know than somewhere you don't know. And you want your flying skills to be instinctive before you start going to all sorts of new places and challenging those skills.
Excellent information. So if you guys want to check out their site, you can go to the links in the description. You'll find the Soboba Flight Park link on Facebook, and then you can also find David in his Facebook and details on there. He's got an email that's pretty easy if you want to send him a message, or maybe you have some questions for him that you didn't get to ask when the show was live. speedflyschool@gmail.com. You can go and check that out and see what's up if you want to try to get in the air. I've flown at Soboba a couple times now, and I really like the site. I can't wait to go on a soaring day and really take it up.
Epic flights here.
Say that again?
You had some pretty epic flights here.
I had some epic on world stage epic type stuff.
Yep. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, that was so fun. Yeah. That was a day to remember for sure.
Absolutely.
I want to, you know what? Let me see if I can pull this up. I want to show everyone your landing. We're going to see if we can just do this before we leave.
Awesome.
Just because it was such a rad day, and that was like the icing on the cake at the end of the day.
Awesome.
I'll paint the picture for just a second. We had already done some tandem flights. I did my very first tandem. It was incredible. We did some acro stuff, and at the end of the day, by the way, I got sick during the acro, and I became the vomit comet for just a few minutes, and I apologize for all the people at Soboba who got some burrito chunks on their stuff. Um, if you're wondering what happened, that's where those burrito chunks came from. But at the end of the day, we were packing up, and these guys had went back up for a run. And I want you to see. Yeah. Let me see how I can make this happen here. We'll pause that. Okay, now we're going to go over here. Technology. Let's see if we can get this is cool. I don't know if it's going to do justice, but I'm going to share it anyways, just because it was so cool. All right, here we go. Screen share. Present to everyone. Everyone. Okay, now we should be cooking with Crisco. We'll go full screen here. All right, here we go. Watch this. Hey, he did a barrel right there. Now he does another barrel roll. Now he's coming in hot. Watch this. Foot drag all the way. Oh, man, that was incredible. So you can literally hear the sound of that wing flying by when you're standing there. And what size?
That's why I tell people to the flight park or go to the swooping event in person, because there's nothing that does it justice.
Yeah.
When you're standing next to it and you hear and feel it come by.
Yeah. And I could feel it too, man. It was intense. And you're going probably about 60 miles an hour, I would guess.
Yeah, we get in excess of 80 miles an hour when we're in the dive.
80. Oh, my word.
On my skydive, I go in excess of 100 miles an hour.
Wow. What size wing are you flying, by the way?
My speed wing is a 7.2 meter. And then my skydive wing is about a 5.5 meter.
That is literally smaller than my bed sheet, which is an 8-meter bed sheet.
I don't think it would fly quite as good, though.
Yeah, it's a little porous.
Bed sheet.
Yeah.
Porosity isn't there either.
Yeah, bad porosity. I tested a few times.
Yeah, right?
Bad porosity. That's what the problem was when I was a kid, because I jumped off the barn with the bed sheet, and I felt like it worked a little bit, but the porosity thing got me. I didn't know about porosity back in the day.
We hit our head a little too hard, and then we just kept doing it our whole lives.
Yeah, just kept going for it.
Had a good enough bed sheet to fly with.
That's right. Just kept getting bigger.
Yeah, bigger, more efficient.
Man. So that's pretty much it. I want to just go to the chat. If there's anybody that has any questions for David and for the guys at Soboba, I'm going to look towards talking to Rich. Rich Kennedy is also an instructor over there. Maybe we'll have him on the show, have his own show. He's got some great insight into mechanics and details. He sent me an email with a bunch of tips for speed flying. And so I'll reach out to him after the show. I sent him an invite. I thought he was going to jump on, but he might be flying or something. And so I'll mention having a show with him. Also, we're looking to have a young lady named, I believe it's Sing Knudsen. Sing Knudsen. She's from Denmark. Oh, nice. And she recently had an injury, and we're going to talk a little bit about recovery and stuff like that. She posted a video of kind of some of her rehab and then getting over the mental part of crashing while speed flying. And we're also going to do a show with Josh Bowden from Nebraska PPG, and we're going to talk to him. He was actually on the last show that we had, but we want to do a special show just with him. And he recently jumped on board with doing a school and then connected with the guys from Aviator PPG. And so we're going to have him coming up. Look for those shows that are coming up. You can check out the details on what's coming next at paraglidingtalk.com. And really encourage you to promote the show. We get the more people, the more merry. And the more that we can get our safety message out there. I thought it would be great to start a show where we can talk about the things that we're so passionate about, which is obviously flying. And that's why we'll talk about anything. I'm interested to even talk to guys that fly sailplane. Half the guys in the chat are pilots already, some commercial pilots, and I love everything.
If you want to get in touch with them.
What's that?
I happen to know quite a few top sailplane pilots from Warner Springs. They fly our airplanes in Paris Valley sometimes.
Oh,
So
really?
if you want their info, I'll put you in contact with them.
Interesting. Okay, that sounds great, man. I watched a sailplane video the other day, and I was totally inspired, and I thought maybe that's something I need to try.
And it's super fun to do.
It looks incredibly fun. The video I actually saw was a video of a guy, I can't remember, I think it's called Ground Effect. And it's basically when you come into land and how the air and the ground pressure kind of, your plane just keeps going across the runway. It's like an infinite.
Hang glider. We don't get it on the paraglider because the wing is too far from the ground, but on the hang glider on the sailplane, you get that compression between the ground and the wing, and you literally just sail forever.
Yeah, it was mind-boggling to me. What was that?
I said I'm a little jealous. I wish I could get my swoop wing close to the ground like that so I could swoop further.
I think you might be touching a little bit of the ground effects when you come in 60 miles an hour with your foot dragging for a football field length. You'll get to see that in person if you come September, what did I say it was? 13th and 14th? I wrote it in my calendar. Yeah, 14th and 15th, Friday and Saturday. This will be in the Bay. I'm sure there'll be more details. Those guys are going to put on a show for us, and that's going to be, is it sponsored by Red Bull?
No, I don't believe so.
It's just those guys. Those three guys are the main guys.
The Swoop Challenge. There are a couple of guys out of Copenhagen that decided to put on a freestyle show. They're skydivers, but they're not swoopers. They are just good organizers. And they started in 2014 organizing the first event. I was privileged enough to attend that event and compete in it, did quite well. And then 2015, I had an accident, broke my leg, and I couldn't attend for 2 years. So I haven't been in the loop for a few years since then.
Ooh. Well, we've got just a couple more minutes. Let me ask the question, since I didn't really talk about injuries because it's usually a Debbie Downer conversation, but we can avoid and we can look to, hey, my dad just logged in. Hey, Pops. How did you break your leg and what did you learn from it? If I could be blunt.
Competition.
Okay.
We're doing the competition starting in the morning, going throughout the day. I was doing quite well in the competition at the time. It started to get to be midday, and the conditions were getting bumpy. We were flying anyways, and I caught some sink coming into into the course, going about 80 miles an hour across the ground, and it skipped me off the ground before I got to the water. I'll send you a link to the video after. You can check it out.
Oh, okay. That'd be
so
great.
I skipped off 80, flipped through my risers twice, landed in the water the second time. I saw that I was over the water, spun the wing on purpose so I'd crash in the water. And I thought I was okay. I tried to stand up, but my femur was in 2 pieces. So that put an end to the day.
Oh. And you were in the water?
Correct.
Busted leg in the water. You had to swim with one leg, and
the water was 3 feet deep. So I was able to kind of wade my way back to the shore, and I pulled myself out of the water and then waited for my teammate, who also was an EMT at the time. So he put my leg into traction almost immediately while we waited for the ambulance to get there, and I was taken care of pretty well. I was in good hands.
Femur. It's brutal.
Yep. Yeah. Oof. You don't even notice it anymore.
How
year
long
later, I was doing everything. So
okay,
really
so that was gonna be my next question. How did you get over the mental hurdle, and how did you process flying after that?
So, having flown for almost 20 years before I had the accident, I had a very good knowledge of why things happen already and what can go wrong and what the consequences might be. I consider myself lucky that I hadn't had an accident up until that point. And when it happened, I just had more time to sit and deliberate how much I'm wanting to push the limits now. You start to get older. There's not really any money in the competitions. So I had a lot of time to reevaluate, okay, I still like to swoop, but I don't need to push the limits that much and be on the edge of death to prove that I'm the fastest parachute pilot in the world or that can swoop the furthest in the world. I stopped caring about that so much. So it gives you a little perspective. It doesn't mean that I wanted to stop flying. In fact, before my doctor even cleared me to jump, I was out of the plane at 2.5 months after the accident. And then my doctor found out, told me he was going to cut my leg off if I hurt myself again. And then I needed to wait. So I waited until he gave me the official clearance at 5 months. And after 5 months after the accident, I was back at work skydiving full time.
So you literally lived off of swooping and skydiving.
I still do. Today I was coaching at the drop zone. I do a lot of canopy coaching for both beginner parachute pilots and more advanced canopy pilots that are competing. I do speed flying instruction, paragliding instruction, and I also take people on tandem skydives. So I love Southern California for this reason. I can do all these things in the same day and never get tired of any of them.
Right? So if I wanted to come skydive with you, I'd just shoot you a text and then we can go, or what?
Yep, absolutely.
What's it going to take?
About $200.
Take a full day?
Nope.
Say it again.
About an hour and $200.
About an hour and $200. Okay. And you've got all the gear and everything.
1,000 feet above Mount San Jacinto, right behind me.
Excellent.
Yes, it's a lot of fun.
Everyone keeps asking me, "Are you going to skydive? Are you going to skydive?" And I just keep on.
I'm sure I can get you a discount on that skydive. I'll talk to the owner of the drop zone and see if we can get you out of the plane for next to nothing. See if we can do some advertising for him.
Okay. So now we're talking.
For that, and we'll see if we can get you out of an airplane.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Oh, I'm stoked. Hey, I really appreciate you coming on the show, Dave. Really. Incredible. I mean, we packed so much information on speed flying into one show. I want to invite you back when we do the other speed flying shows. When we have Sing on, maybe if you're interested, I'll shoot you the details when they come. If you'd come on and we can expand the conversation more. I think it's a great conversation, and there's still so much to learn and so much that we can talk about with speed flying. And flying in general.
Still not cover all the topics.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate. Say that one more time.
I said, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate your time, your show, and your efforts that you put into this, because it's helping to progress our sport.
Yeah, man. Right on. Well, I'm passionate about it, and I know you guys are too. Let's take it to the next one. Really appreciate everybody in the chat, all the moderators, everybody for logging in. And I just saw Soboba Flight Park in the chat. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that's Rich. I'm going to reach out to you, Rich, talk to you after this one. And really appreciate everybody supporting the show. Go to the Patreon, support the show there financially for the price of a cup of coffee a month. You can support the show. It's something like that. $5, $2, $1, just something to support the show. Let me know that you care and that you like the show and you wanted to see it go on. The guys are all out there flying right now. I'm in here doing the show. I could be flying, but I chose to do this. Make it worth it for me.
A live show out here at Soboba one day.
I thought about doing that. I just don't know about the Wi-Fi, if it's strong enough.
Oh, the internet connection. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Next time I'm there, I'll do the test.
See how.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, man. I really appreciate you. And I'll reach out to you soon. We'll talk about doing that skydiving thing. It sounds like a blast.
Awesome, brother. Have a good night.
All right. Stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.
Will do.
All right.